Hey everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to the live. Looks like I actually have to change my camera setup here. Here we go. There we go. There we go. Great, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. One would love to hear who's all here. I see a few people already in the chat. We got Chris. Chris is a tech sales mentor here, my business partner here at Tech Sales Mentors. Maybe a decent amount of you saw him through his TikTok. And yeah, looks like some SDR candidates here as well. So love to see that. Today we're going to talk about kind of the SDR hiring market, right? And so probably most of you that are here are considering an SDR role or actively in the search. And it's really good if you have the awareness to know, one, like based on your skill set and your experiences, can you get a job in this industry right now, given where the hiring market is? And if you can, kind of what type of offer you can get, right? Because not every sort of tech sales offer, SDR offer is the same, right? Some are good, some are bad, and we want to give you guys that insight today to help you understand based on, hey, your skill set, your experience. Here's kind of what you can expect in our industry right now. So. Cool. So, kind of the agenda for today was wow, we have 30 people here. One, I just want to say, I think that's the most people we've had in a live yet. So, thank you all for coming. This is awesome that you guys are all here. And yeah, really grateful that you guys took some time out of your day to listen to me just blabber on for an hour. So, kind of, the agenda for today will be kind of a few sections. So, first, before we talk about specifically the SDR hiring market, I think it makes a lot of sense to first start by understanding the whole tech hiring market, right? It's good to have this broad understanding of our industry. You guys aren't just tech sales reps. You'll become tech employees. And it's good to understand the larger forces that are at play that are the main drivers that are affecting the tech sales market. So that's the first thing. We'll take a step back, understand the tech industry as a whole and where the hiring market is and why it's changed so much the past few years. We'll talk about the reality today for tech companies, kind of the how business has changed for them, how they're operating differently. And then we'll get into speaking specifically about SDRs, right? Who could get a job in tech sales 2 years ago versus who can now? About 2 years ago, it was much more broad. Today, there's definitely a more narrow candidate profile that employers are looking for. And so we'll go through that. And then I'll walk you through of the SDRs that are getting hired today. What are those salary ranges that they're getting? What types of companies they're joining? All that kind of great stuff. And then if you are struggling currently in the hiring market, we'll walk through some opportunities we're seeing in this hiring market and some areas where you guys may not be as well aware of that you can take advantage of and that aren't as competitive to get a job. And then finally, we'll sort of finish with your guys' questions, right? Anything you guys have, you can ask throughout the conversation, and I'll do my best to keep up with the chat and answer them. So as I mention things, if questions come up, feel free to throw them in. And I'll try to answer them now. But if I don't get to it, then by then, I'll try to get through everything. So let's start with sort of, let's take a step back, right? Let's go back a few years. So let's start with when COVID hit. So when COVID hit, actually initially what happened was it was pretty bad for tech and every industry. Every industry was basically like, I believe what they called it was RIFs, reductions in force. And all of these companies basically did mass layoffs really quickly. Then maybe let's say like 2 weeks, a month, or 2 months later, everyone realized like, oh, business still needs to get done. And in this, COVID world where everyone is remote and people can't physically interact, that meant really good things for the tech sales and tech industry, right? Because everyone was getting stuff done through technology, right? And so what ended up happening was there's sort of this broad driving force, which is interest rates, right? And so this isn't a macroeconomics class. You guys want to be sales reps, not, mathematicians or finance geeks. So we'll simplify it and just say low interest rates mean more money into tech companies, more funding tech companies are getting, and higher interest rates mean, tech companies are getting less funding. There's less pay to go around to individuals, stuff like that. So what happened was interest rates dropped completely. Tech companies got all of this funding, and they were getting all these customers, right? One example, it's probably, we all know, is we all started using Zoom during the pandemic if you hadn't been using it beforehand, right? And so Zoom was a company that just took off, right? Their stock took off. And Zoom is a company that has, sales reps, tech sales reps that sell their products. And um, so that's what happened was, in the early innings and the middle innings of the pandemic was these tech companies got lots of money. They had huge growth projections because everyone was using technology, and because they needed to grow revenue. What that means is the way they do that is they hire tech sales reps to do that, right? Those are the people who are driving revenue. So that's what was happening was people who had no experience whatsoever, whether it was sales or tech, were getting jobs. And so you may have seen this on TikTok or YouTube or whatever. You can get in this industry with no experience. There's partially some truth to that, and there's, not now we're seeing in this hiring market that it's not that cut and dry. And so now let's fast forward a little bit. Let's say about a year and a half ago or so, interest rates start to rise. And with interest rates rising, tech companies aren't getting as much funding, right? A lot of these sort of tech companies are private companies. And the way they grow their businesses is initially grow their businesses is they get lots of funding from investors, what are called venture capitalists. And so with interest rates rising, we're going to simplify here today. They were getting less money from venture capitalists. That's all you need to know there. And that means they weren't growing as fast. They didn't have as high of growth projections, and they weren't hiring as many people, right? And so with those growth projections cutting, they had to do lots of layoffs as well. And so people who they hired during the pandemic, who maybe were unqualified, unexperienced, some of those people performed well in this environment. Just because you don't have experience and in a certain role, it doesn't mean you won't perform well. You could easily perform well. But there are some people who get into tech sales who have never done sales or never been in a tech role, and they weren't meant for this. And so some of those people got laid off as well. And so that happened about a year and a half ago. So now since then, we've been in this hiring market, right? And what this hiring market really is there. The way to think about this is supply and demand. There's, when it comes to employees, potential candidates, the supply balloon. There's a lot more supply of SDR candidates because a lot of SDRs got laid off. And so, when the pandemic was happening in the early innings, nobody could hire because everybody was hiring, right? And so, meaning like they couldn't hire necessarily the best talent because everybody was hiring. But now that everyone's slowing hiring and there's less job openings and there's more candidates going for those job openings, it's become tougher. And so, so now with the reality today, that's sort of, how we've gotten to this point today. Now let's talk about the reality today for tech companies. So on the sort of think of the broadly speaking, think of the tech market in two buckets. There is public tech companies that are listed on the stock exchange that you can buy and sell their stock, and then there's private tech companies. Those are companies that aren't listed on the stock exchange and you can't buy and sell their stock. And so those companies primarily get funding through investors and venture capitalists. And so the public tech companies, they have made the necessary changes simply because think about public tech companies, they're under a lot more scrutiny because they are public tech companies. And so something I want to share here with you is It's a little chart. So this chart, let's see if I got it pulled up here. So this is a chart from this guy named Jason Lemkin. He's in the software sales, tech sales industry, and basically he's showing sort of stock performance for like, let's say, 20-ish public tech companies this past year. And so this is saying these tech companies who are, companies that have tech sales openings, think of these as B2B tech companies, business to business tech companies. Look at how their stock has performed this year, right? Palantir up 200%, CrowdStrike up 100%, Cloudflare up 70%. So these companies have made the changes to their business. They've done the layoffs. They run tighter ships now. The sales reps that are at these companies are contributing and performing really well. And because of that, the stock market is sort of rewarding these companies. So this is public companies. But what I'll say is sort of there is still on the private side, there is more shoes to drop, as the saying goes. And so what I mean by that is basically these companies have funding that they got from venture capitalist investors maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and now that money's running low. And so the way you can think of this is like when a company, private tech company, raises money, it's a Series A, a Series B, a Series C, right? So kind of, let's say a company raised a Series A year ago, then maybe they'd raise a Series B a year and a half later, 2 years later. And so those companies are starting to run low on those funds. And so while some part of the tech hiring market has really recovered, you can see these public tech companies, they've really recovered. Some private companies haven't. Some private companies are on their dying days, and there's going to sort of still be more pain there. Some private companies have made the changes. They've done the layoffs, and they've sort of, they're operating their businesses better, all that kind of stuff. But others haven't. So that's just sort of broad level. Now let's get into like why you guys are here today, right? And so why you guys are here today is understand what type of SDR can get hired in this hiring market, and what type of income can they make, right? And so really broadly, what we're seeing in the hiring market right now, and honestly, I don't know if I actually did this, but the reason we sort of understand this is because I run a company called Tech Sales Mentors, and what we do is at any given time we're working with 20 SDR candidates, and we're running their job search for them. So we'll get them into interviews, we'll prep them for those interviews, and we'll help them negotiate their offer and help them pick the right one for them. And so since we're working with so many candidates at once with all different types of levels of experience, we know what types of candidates can get jobs and can't right now. And so, maybe 2 years ago, it was common to see, a teacher get a job in tech sales, or a nurse get a job in tech sales, or a 911 operator get a job in tech sales. And the reason why is because they weren't necessarily being assessed on their experience when it came to selling. They were being assessed on rather their character traits. Are you a good communicator? Are you an active listener? Do you have a story in your life where you've been rejected and you've overcome it? Have you shown accountability and ownership in your life? And so really, like, as long as you showed those character traits a few years ago, you could land a job in tech sales, and you were, maybe a decent communicator, maybe not the best communicator in the world. You could just be a decent communicator and get a job in tech sales. But now here's kind of like what we're seeing today. So it's these 3 buckets. So one, those communication skills, you still need to have them, but they need to be even better. So really the way I like to think about this is on 3 levels. So one is you got to be high energy, right? And so you can't be like monotone and kind of like not fired up, right? You have to be excited and positive, and just the way you're communicating has to project sort of energy, excitement, and happiness. And so that's one piece to communication skills. Another piece is confidence, right? So you can't be someone who's shy. Can't be saying all this kind of stuff all the time. You have to articulate confidently through your voice and project confidence. And then the last thing would be sounding conversational, right? And so you may be like writing down your answers before your interviews, right? Like, oh, here's what I'm going to answer when I say tell me about yourself, or here's what I'm going to answer when I say why sales. But if it sounds really scripted when you're delivering it, if it's like something like um, why sales? Well, I see. I have three reasons for why sales. So reason number one is, right, that sounds kind of scripted, right? You want to sound more conversational, just like you're at the dinner table talking to a friend or family member, right? Just authentic. It has to sound more authentic, right? You don't want to sound like a politician reading off a teleprompter or something like that. And so that's what it takes when it comes to good communication skills. Is you got to bring that to the table. Now, the second piece, sort of the biggest change we've seen in the hiring market, is you need to have quota carrying sales experience. And there are a few exceptions to that rule, and we'll talk more about that later. But in general, these companies are looking for, when it comes to SDRs, they're looking for people who have carried quotas for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And I'm talking like sales quotas, like you have to book a certain number of qualified meetings with leads, or you have to close a certain amount of revenue, but some sort of sales number, right? It can't be some like production quota if you work in a factory or something like that. It has to be actual, sales number. And so, oh, thank you, Alex. Thank you for the shout out. You're my guy. You guys should all check out Alex's profile. He's a cool guy. If you get a chance to talk to him, he's one of the most down to earth guys I've ever met. And despite that, he's done some really cool things. So thanks for a shout out, Alex. And then the last thing you sort of need, the third thing to get a job in tech sales right now, this is more so related to our program, is you need to be coachable, right? You're not going to get it right the first time in an interview or whatever. And so you need to implement feedback. And so that can be hard when you're on a job search and you're by yourself, right? Because an employer is not really giving you feedback. So really, you should seek out a mentor in our industry. And if you're having trouble finding mentors, then, check out what we're doing at Tech Sales Mentors. That's kind of what we focus on. And so kind of what I want to do now is I want to show you guys actual profiles of individuals who are getting jobs in tech sales right now, different types of levels of experience. And so first, the first bucket of people I want to talk about is actually people who haven't had quota carrying experience. So here are individuals where they haven't had quota carrying experience and they're still getting a job in tech sales, and I'm going to explain how. So let me pull up their profiles right now for you. So let's see here, share screen. Let's go like that. And let's go like this. Cool. So first, I want to talk about Amin, right? So Amin, you can see he's a business development representative, and he is at Reach Desk, right? And so he landed that role, let's say 3 months ago, right? And if we look at his experience beforehand, he did not have quota carrying experience. He was someone who recently graduated college. And so he graduated from USC. And so really what you need, if you're a recent college graduate, what you need to show that, not necessarily that you've done sales roles, it's okay if you haven't, but you need to show that you've had sort of business experience, business type of internships, right? So like here I can see, cool, like he did some type of business role. He did some like marketing stuff, a little bit of sales stuff, but not like too hardcore of sales stuff, right? So that's one example. Another example, he's an assistant to a CEO, right? And he's helping him do these financial reports, whatever. It's just some type of like business thing, some type of business internship. Right here, you can see he's like, again, he wasn't doing a direct sales role, but he created some playbook for the sales team to help them increase sales. And then here you can see like I like analyze market trends, right, to come up with some portfolio recommendations. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. It was business internships he did. So he didn't have sales or quota carrying experience, but what he had to compensate for that in other ways. And so his communication skills had to be great. And so they were. And then the other piece that's most critical here is we were not going to land in a remote role. Simply, there's too much competition in remote roles for someone with his experience. The people who are getting remote roles right now are people with, business to consumer, quota carrying sales experience, or business to business, quota carrying sales experience. But what he did was he went to New York City and he works on site at Reach Desk in New York City. So you would want to sort of work in, if you don't have this quota carrying experience, you kind of have to go. If you want a good tech company, if you want to join a good tech company, you kind of got to go in person to New York City to. I can sort of detail these cities for you. Tier 1 cities. These are the cities that have the most tech openings right now, or just have always had the most tech openings. New York City, San Francisco, and then you can throw Austin into that bucket right now. I'm in Austin. Austin's awesome. And then tier 2 cities. These are cities with slightly less opportunities. Think of that as like a Chicago, a Atlanta, a Denver, and a Salt Lake City, maybe Seattle, but less so. So that's kind of one example of someone, hey, recent college grad, didn't have quota carrying sales experience. We landed him a job at Reach Desk. Another example would be Taran. And so Taran was someone who also recently graduated from college. And if we look at his experience, right, he didn't really, he says SDR intern right here, but it really wasn't it was like a week of SDR work or something like that. It wasn't that meaningful. What he did show was in college, he wasn't just sitting around. He was getting internship experience, getting business experience, getting career experience. And so companies will judge recent college graduates different than they'll judge someone 5 to 10 years out of college. Someone who's a recent college graduate, they're really just looking for, what were they doing in the summer? Were they just fucking around and just at home playing video games? Or were they doing, internships and trying to get experience and landing gigs and learning more about their career, right? And, you can see he kind of did techie type internships. And so that was helpful as well. But again, just some type of business internship. And so he's landed at 6 cents. One thing I want to call out here is, Reach Desk and 6 Cents, these are top tier companies. And that's the type of tech companies you want to get into. And so this is a company, they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital funding. They have about 1,500 employees. This is a hyper growth sort of tech startup. And so one way to think about this is really you want to get into, maybe you guys aren't the biggest basketball fans, but I think you all can understand this analogy is if you're an aspiring basketball player, you don't want to play, if you grow up, you don't want to play in the European League. You don't want to play, this is a Twitter joke, you don't want to play in the Shanghai Sharks in China. You want to play in the NBA, right? You want to play in the best of the best. And the same case here happens in tech, right? You want to work for top tier tech companies. Those are the companies that get the most funding and from the best venture capitalists. And when they do that, it really means 3 things. One, it means they pay top of market salaries. It means they attract the best talent. And it's like that, basic quote, right? You're an average of the 5 people you're surrounded by, right? And so if you're surrounded by top tier talent, that's going to elevate your game. You're going to be surrounded by highly competent people who are ambitious. You're going to learn better than in, a shitty tech company where the talent around you sucks. And then finally, the thing that's really important here is these companies grow the fastest, and company growth means career growth. They need people to step into those roles. And so that's good for you as you think about, the goal here. And another saying is the goal here isn't to just, the goal of getting into tech sales isn't to just, be an SDR. It's for all of the roles that come after that. And so you really want to crush that SDR role. You want to make sure you're at a company where they have a clear career path post SDR that you can grow. So those are some individuals who, that's one category of people. Recent college grads with some type of business internship experience. The next bucket are, the next bucket of people who also don't have direct sort of quota carrying sales experience are people with what I'll call prestigious experience, right? And so this is just what the tech world sort of sees as other industries where they respect that sort of not respect, but know that this person has had to do certain types of things in the role that are very um, actually, let me pull back a little bit. So I'll actually just show you with an example. So kind of prestigious experience would be someone like Andrew, right? And so for Andrew, Andrew is someone who recently joined Tropic. When he says growth, what he just means here is the SDR role. He's just being cute with the title here, but you see here he's crushing his role at Tropic. And so before that, he had what was called prestigious experience, right? And so you can see here this analyst role. This means at Houlihan Lokey, this was in investment banking. And investment banking is known as an industry where you have to work 80 hours a week, where you are communicating with executives who are your clients. You are presenting to those clients, and there's sort of like when someone thinks of like someone in tech sales, like um, those are things that are all very applicable. Like, wow, this person worked 80 hours a week. They're not going to sweat making 100 cold calls per day. They're going to find that to be really easy. Or oh wow, this person was like creating presentations for C-level executives at Fortune 500 companies. Wow, like he's going to perform really well when he has to give a presentation to a lead or whatever. And so that's one piece there. But then the second piece also was he was the co-founder of a company. And there are levels to starting a business. And really, like Andrew did some things at this business that separated himself as a business owner, that made him seem less of like an entrepreneur and more of a real legit business owner that really did some good work. So one example is he raised $5 million for this business, right? And so to raise money, you have to convince investors to give you money, right? You have to get them to say, yes, give me money. And technically, that's what sales is, right? Sales is just getting someone to say yes and give you money. And so, so he had that type of prestigious experience, right? He was a founder who raised money. He did investment banking, stuff like that. Another example would be someone like Michael. And so Michael was more recently joined Timescale. This is a lifelong friend of mine, childhood friend of mine. And you can see he's quickly sort of climbed the ranks at Timescale. He was an SDR there for 8 months and got promoted to account executive. Don't expect that to happen for you that fast. That's more so the exception to the rule. Not only was Mike a great performer, but sometimes you're in the right place at the right time at your company, and the promotion happens. But before that, what Michael was doing was what was called management consulting, and it's similar to what we spoke about with Andrew in investment banking. And so it was a role where, again, you had to be client facing. You were coming into these businesses that were going under, and you had to quickly put together a plan to make sure that business didn't go under. And so it was a high stakes, high pressure environment. You were communicating with C-level executives, putting together presentations for them. And yeah, you had to work crazy hours as well, right? And so kind of those other pieces I mentioned, communicating with C-level execs and working hard, but the high stakes environment is very applicable to tech sales. In tech sales, every quarter you have a quota that you have to hit, and that can feel kind of high stakes, right? Because the quarter maybe is reaching its end, and if you're close to hitting your quota, you can feel that pressure. And so, how do you respond to that? Do you perform well? All that kind of stuff. And outside of just their prestigious experience, what Michael and both Andrew had was, again, they compensated for their lack of experience in other ways. They were really great communicators in interviews, like top tier communicators. And so you can sort of overcome this experience if you're just an out of this world communicator, and you have sort of really great experience outside of a sales role. The last thing that was really evident with these two individuals was like they were so thoughtful and well prepared when it came to interview preparation. Um, they were part of our program, and when they came to do mock interviews with us, and I was getting ready to critique their why our company answer or their tell me about yourself answer, they followed our directions to the T. And so there wasn't much for me to correct because they had already followed our resources and really crushed everything, right? And so for them, there was no me fixing their answers. They had already followed our directions on how to come up with good answers. Now it's just them about being a good communicator in the interview and delivering that. And again, they were great communicators, so they found that pretty easy. Um, so now, like, probably the last bucket of people that are getting jobs in tech sales are people with sales experience, with actual quota carrying experience. So I'll give you an example of that on a few levels, right? And so one level is having business to consumer sales experience, right? Selling to individual consumers, not to businesses. And so Francis is an example of someone like that. And so you can see him. So, side note, if you guys are in the early innings of learning about tech sales, you should check out our free courses. And so if you just go to our website, techsalesmentors.com, you'll see a free SDR course button. And this is sort of what Francis went through here. And so it'll help you speak more, help you, one, understand if this career path is right for you, but then also speak more intelligently in your interviews to show you understand this world, you get this world. And so, so Francis recently started at Ramp. Ramp is a sick tech company. They're on fire right now. Let's check them out. Let's check out some stats about them. Recently raised $300 million, ranked on LinkedIn as a top startup. And you can see here they have 1,100 employees. And so before Ramp, what Francis did was he was at Easy Advocates. And so what I want to clarify here is, like, you see the sales development representative. There's levels to this, right? There's someone who was selling to consumers. There could be someone who's an SDR who's selling to businesses. And there's an SDR who could be selling software to businesses. And so that's from like kind of least applicable experience to most applicable experience to tech sales, right? So what Francis had was he did a SDR role selling to consumers. And so kind of like this is what he did for a few years, had a quota carrying role, and you can see he surpassed his quota. Really, like, when it comes to sales roles, you want to demonstrate a few things in interviews. One, you want to demonstrate you're a top performer. And so that means you beating your quota. That means you performing better than your peers. Whatever metrics that show you were sort of at sort of the top of the leaderboards. You want to show that you're coachable, right? You're learning sales lessons. You're really thinking about sales as a craft and an obsession that you want to get better at. And then last thing is like showing that you've been rejected a lot in sales and you've persevered through it and you've overcome it, all that kind of stuff. So that's, if you do have sales experience and you're trying to think through how you should talk more through them in interviews, focus on those sorts of things. And so this is someone with business to consumer selling experience that got a job in tech sales. Now let's go one level up. So let's go to someone who had business to business SDR experience. And so that's Yazan here. And so now you can see he recently joined RudderStack. And so that's a really early stage tech company, but is pretty interesting here. And so before that, again, being clever with the titles here, but these are just sales roles. And none of these were necessarily like hardcore, selling software tech companies. They were more so like selling services or something like that to other businesses. And so he had about a year or two of experience doing that. But yeah, Yazan was great, and he landed a great tech sales job. And then the last bucket of people that are landing jobs are people with actual SaaS SDR experience, right? So who should we talk about here? So let's talk about Omar, right? So Omar was someone who previously was at Blend, got laid off from Blend, And we helped him land this role at TalkDesk, right? And so you can kind of see here, he landed an enterprise sales development representative role. And so this is more of a senior SDR role. This is a role where you're getting paid more than a regular SDR role. And you're selling specifically to enterprises, to the largest companies in the world, not companies of all sizes. And so, so those are kind of the people in tech sales who are getting jobs today. And so where should we go next? Let's talk next about, of these SDRs that are getting hired, what are those salary ranges like? And so kind of the way that, like, it's a little bit hard to maybe simplify this, but let's say you have less sales experience and you're not as good of a communicator. Then you can expect an offer, and let's say I'm talking on target earnings, OTE. If you don't know what that means, then you should definitely watch our free course that I mentioned a few minutes ago. But let's say you have less sales experience and you're not that good of a communicator. You should expect to land a role in the 60 to like 75K OTE range. Let's say you're someone with better communication skills and more sales experience, then you should expect to land a role in the 75K to 95K OTE range, salary range. And yeah, that's kind of what salary looks like. But really, like, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, like, the biggest mistake I sort of see SDR candidates make is they overweight the like when they're comparing offers and considering an opportunity, they overweight and overcompensate on salary, and they don't think deeply enough about two other things that I think are way more important. One is, who is your manager? Who's your SDR manager? And then what is the career path look like at this tech company? And so before I dive into those, like, let's just step back and think about this, right? Like, let's say you're getting into tech sales or you're looking for another tech sales role. Probably the reason you're in this industry is because you're thinking about this from a long-term perspective. You're thinking about what you can make as an account manager, as an account executive, SDR manager, wherever you want to get promoted into after. You're thinking about it from that angle, right? And so that's initially why you got into this industry. You were thinking long-term. But then comes offer stage, right? You go through your interviews, you crush your interviews, and you land with a few offers. And let's say you're comparing a 75K OTE offer versus a 70K OTE offer. And your mind immediately goes, oh, I want the 75K OTE offer. It pays higher, right? But let's actually do the math there, right? And so what that actually means is, like, in the range of post-tax, it just means about $400 more per month in earnings, right? So not like, okay, a little bit of money, but like not that big a deal of money. But the part that you're not, like, you may be missing and not thinking about here is like, well, like, if I stay at this company a year, like, what am I going to learn from my manager? Like, do I feel confident that me and my manager, like, will have a great relationship and I'm going to learn a lot from this person? And then the second piece is sort of like, okay, a year from now, 2 years from now, like, what does my career path look like at this company? Like, do they have a proven track record of promoting SDRs into other roles like account executive, account manager, stuff like that? And so people obsess too much over short-term earnings, but then sacrifice their long-term earnings. And like, okay, if like you only had 1 year left on your career, maybe you should prioritize, only the first year's earnings. But like, all of you, I'm guessing, have 20, 30, 40, 50 years left of career earning potential. And so again, you just want to think more long-term. Another example of this is I was speaking to someone today, and they were based in Kansas. And this guy is like loving crypto, and he's doing a great job. Like, he's learning a lot about how to like come up with smart contracts and all this technical stuff. And I was telling him, hey, like, this is all great, but like, to get a tech sales role, like, we can't get you a remote role. He's based in Kansas. We can't get you a remote role. You don't have enough experience. You need to get a role in San Francisco or, like those cities I mentioned earlier, New York City, Chicago, Atlanta, whatever. And what he said to me was, yeah, I just can't live in San Francisco off a 70K salary. It's not possible. And so, what I want to say is like, and if you're someone with a family or something like that, like maybe that's true. But this guy's like, single guy, recently out of college, stuff like that. What I want to do is I want to dispel that myth for you that cities like San Francisco or New York City you can't afford to live there. Tens of thousands of SDRs move to San Francisco and move to New York City every single year to take 70K OTE and 80K OTE roles because they are and I did it as well, because they are prioritizing their medium to long-term earnings, not their short-term earnings, right? And so what I want to say here is there's this concept that is called proximity is power. I believe it comes from Tony Robbins. And it's this concept that like, hey, if you're trying to if you're trying to perform well in an industry and you're prioritizing your sort of career right now, then you want to be near where that power center is. You want to be where the best in the business are in that industry. And so, if we were to use another example, right? Like people who want to make it in the film industry, should they be in like Kansas or Iowa? No, like they should be in like Los Angeles. And so same concept here. Like I was in San Francisco for 6 years and I've moved to Austin now and I lean on that network every single day now. And it's really the reason that I am really good at my job, my business. It's the reason that I have opportunities come to me. And it's the reason that, like financially I'm performing really well is because I sacrificed sort of 1 to 2 to 3 years of not, saving as much as I want to. But now sort of if we look at it on a longer time scale of where I'm at now, I'm performing much better economically than if I were to I grew up in Michigan, than if I were to have just stayed in Michigan the entire time. And so again, it's not possible for everyone to move to these cities. I totally get that. But if you're prioritizing your career, it's the number one focus for you in your life, highly recommend you go to one of these cities. And so that relates to sort of this fifth thing that I want to talk about today, which is where are there opportunities in the tech sales market right now? The tech sales market is tough. And so I'm sure you've all seen it. You've all seen like these tech sales openings and these remote ones in particular, and there's 1,000, there's 2,000, there's 3,000, there's 4,000 applicants for these remote openings. How are you going to stand out? You aren't. And so what we're seeing with lots of our candidates that are looking for in-person or hybrid opportunities is they're getting into interviews at a way higher rate. Those candidates don't have to have as much sales experience, and they're getting into interviews at really interesting, really strong tech companies. So I'll show you a few of those examples right now. So let's hold this up here. Cool. So one example here is Navan. So let's see here how I zoom. There we go. So Navan, they are a company who recently raised $400 million. They have, let's say, a few thousand employees. And I think we can like see their company growth as well. Let's check out the Insights tab, right? And so, they've grown their employee count 75% over 2 years, right? So this is a growing company, right? And so we look at these jobs and where they're hiring SDRs, right? And so they're hiring SDRs, right? And they're hiring a hybrid role. They posted this over 2 weeks ago, and it only has 100 applicants. These remote roles, you'll post one and 20 minutes later, there'll be 100 applicants. And so this is a top tier tech company. If you were to get into this tech company, these are just opportunities that are like sitting and waiting for you in the market right now. And so Jeffrey, you're totally correct. Navan is a sick company. that people need to definitely check out. Another example is a company called Rippling. Rippling is a tech darling, and so they're a company who let's see. Okay, yeah, there you go. There's a SDR role based in Austin, and so again, posted a week ago, 82 applicants. Like this is a really great tech company. This is a company that recently raised $500 million. They've grown they've grown their team 200 almost 200% in 2 years. Like these are, the cream of the crop of tech companies. And, they have an opening available in Austin, $45 an hour. Let's see, let's do that math real quick. That's, is that accurate? That's $86,000. Is that base salary? No way. Oh, that's on target. So on target here, the range is, on target, the range is 69K to 86K, just depending on how good of a candidate you are. And so that's another example, right? Another example of a great tech company. Yeah, and then the final one I will show you is just a bunch of killers, bunch of sales killers. And so if you're looking for a sales environment where people are just focused on just crushing it, check out Snowflake. And so Snowflake, right? We can see here they're recruiting for their Bellevue office in Washington. They're San Mateo. This is like the Bay Area. This is like South San Francisco, and good compensation. Over 2 weeks ago, only 100 applicants. Like this one, 2 weeks ago, 68 applicants. Like damn, like these opportunities are here for you guys. You should definitely check them out. So let's see. I think that's all I wanted to chat about there of opportunities in this market. Yeah. So what I'll say here is like, again, like if any of you are, if here's who should consider these hybrid and on-site opportunities. It's two buckets of people. One, if you don't really have quota carrying sales experience and you want to break into this industry, these are roles that are right for you. You do need to overcome your sales experience. And so that means you need to be a great communicator, and you need to be very very thoughtful in your prep and in interviews. Your why our company answers need to be great. Your questions for the interviewers need to be very personalized and well thought out. And again, you may be like, I don't know how to do that, I don't know, like so on and so forth. Like again, that's where our business comes in, and how we help you prep for interviews. So that's one bucket, is people who don't have as much sales experience. And then the other bucket is people who, again, if your career is your number one priority, or you are just like in love with the tech industry, like just go to one of these hot spots, like immerse yourself in this industry. I can't recommend enough. Like, all my best friends are in tech now, and they push me to be better. They're great individuals, and I'll love those relationships and friendships for the rest of my life. And so last thing I want to go over is and before I go over it is feel free to start throwing questions in the chat, and I'm happy to sort of go through some. And so throw them in now, and after I go through this last topic, I can start answering questions you guys have about anything. Like, let me know. I'm here. So the last question, like you may be asking, is like, man, this hiring market's tough. Like, is tech sales like still worth it? Like, should I still get into this industry? Well, really, like that's a decision for you to make. But here's how I'm thinking about that is I'm a fan of history, and what I've noticed is sort of like every century there is an industry that is considered new technology, and people who are in those industries just end up having very successful careers, because that new industry, that new technology is taking off. And simply, like, you don't have to be performing that well to make it in that. And you're not like climbing, what's the saying? You're not trying to push a rock up a steep hill or something like that. Right. Because just the industry is naturally growing so fast. And so, like as an example, right, like there's been previous centuries where that meant you should be in manufacturing, right? Or you should be in the coal industry, or you should be in California looking for gold, or you should be in the car industry, right? Right now, it really feels like, for me, the past 20 years, it seems like software has dominated our world. And um, like I don't see that slowing down at all. I just see us only becoming more integrated with technology, and I just got a whoop. And so, so that's sort of my case. There is, I think, every sort of century, every sort of generation, there's an industry that grows way faster than every other industry. And if you look at tech, like, that's what's happening. And so that's kind of how I think about it. Maybe that'll change one day. If that changes one day, I'll let you know. But for now, I still know lots of tech sales rep. While the current market is tough, they're still making good money. Their jobs are slightly harder, and they know in like a year or two that this industry is going to rebound, and it slowly is rebounding now. As I showed you that chart earlier with those public tech companies. So so those are my thoughts. Is tech sales is still great, and if you can't get a job in this industry right now, if it's like you don't have any sales experience and you still want a remote role, then you should probably get sales experience outside of tech, um, in another type of industry, and crush that role for 6 months, and then come back, and then you will have sort of the experience to get into these interviews. And then, of course, again, you still have to be a good communicator, all that kind of stuff. So so those are my thoughts there. So let's see here. Let's jump into some questions. So no Cybertruck. That's for me only. I will not be giving away a Cybertruck. That's definitely something I'm going to be getting for myself. I feel like I'd crash it though, so I don't know if that's a good idea. So let's see here. All right. Okay, so like, yeah, Navan, that's great company. Okay, I got someone asking, what was your journey in tech sales, and what do you think was the height of your experience in tech sales? Okay, so I'm not sure 100% what you mean by that question, but I can try to answer it. So the first part of that question is, what was your journey in tech sales? So I was in college at Michigan State, and I was pursuing a finance degree because a very sophisticated reason, because my older brother did it. And with that, I was going to pursue a career in investment banking. That was sort of like the top tier sort of finance role you could get. As I was learning about investment banking, I would read the Wall Street Journal a lot and all of these publications, Financial Times, stuff like that. And I'd always find myself like clicking on the tech tab and like not feeling like work to like learn about this, like just being like genuinely like fascinated with this industry. And so like I was like, damn, I kind of want to get into tech. But then like what I was seeing on the tech sort of like publication was Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, right? All these people who were like technically gifted. And I was like, your boy doesn't know how to code. That is not where my skill set is. And so I remember telling my cousin my plan. And so you all should check out, if you guys are interested in like tech stuff, like you guys should listen to this podcast. It's really great. It's called My First Million. And so it's my cousin's podcast. It's one of the top podcasts in the tech industry. And it's dope. You should watch it. My First Million. But Sean right here, he's my cousin, and he was giving me basically, I was telling him my master plan. I was like, hey, I'm going to do investment banking for 3 years, and then I'm going to get a venture capital role. And a venture capital role, those are the people who fund startups, fund tech companies, all that kind of stuff. And I told him that, and he said, are you a dumbass? Like, why don't you just go work for a tech company and then work for a venture capital firm? And I was like, oh, like I can actually work for a tech company? Like I didn't realize that. He's like, yeah, like there's plenty of people who don't code at a tech company. And, give me a break here. This was like in 2016, 2017. There wasn't as much breaking into tech content. So I didn't know that initially. And so, So that's what he said was like, do that instead. You're not going to hate your life. You're actually going to really enjoy working for a tech company. And oh, by the way, when you start working for that tech startup, you're going to realize you don't even want to be a venture capitalist at all. You're going to enjoy building companies more than actually investing in them. And he was totally right. He was totally on the money. I love sort of like building startups and taking them from nothing to something. And so then I started applying on this website called back in the day it was called AngelList. It was a tech job board. Now it's called Well Found, and I found this company. This company was called Sift, and Sift was really cool. They were called Sift Science back in the day. That was like their dorky tech name. Now they're like this is their corporate grown up name called Sift, and it was a really cool company. And so they were using machine learning, and machine learning is just a form of artificial intelligence to stop fraud on the internet. And so I just thought it was so fascinating. And so I remember it was finals week at school. It was my senior year. It was finals week. And I had to fly to San Francisco for an on-site interview. And instead of studying for finals, I was just filling out whiteboards, learning about customer stories of how Sift has used machine learning to help companies and all the benefits these businesses get from using machine learning. They're automating tasks they would do manually. They're catching a lot more fraud. They're saving money on fraud, all this kind of stuff. And so, I ended up getting that job. And yeah, really for me, like my goal of getting into tech sales wasn't to stay in tech sales. For me, like I really wanted to be a founder, and I saw this as my entry path to meet lots of interesting people in tech. And so I moved to San Francisco, and my focus in my tech sales role was to just do amazing, amazing work on a daily basis. And over time, people at the company would notice that, and that would lead to future opportunities for me. And that's what happened. And so I did that for, let's say, like three to 6 months. I just crushed my tech sales role. And then we were launching a new product, and they needed an SDR to sort of an SDR to sort of take on that new product. And I was the one who stepped up to do it. And so it was really exciting. I was getting invited to meetings that most SDRs like weren't at the time. And being a fly on the wall and interesting conversations between marketing and finance and sales, and them asking for my input and creating messaging that our whole team would use, and having these strategy meetings with our sales director. And so did really great work there. And then I was about a year and a half into my tech sales role, and I was getting time to get promoted to AE. But then I realized, again, like I didn't want that. I wanted to become a founder. And so I ended up meeting this founder who was starting his third company. As previous two, he had sold successfully, and he needed employee number one. I decided to join him on that journey, worked with him for a year, learned how to become a great founder, and now ever since been working on tech sales mentors, and helping lots of candidates, SDR candidates, land amazing jobs. And what was the height of my experience in tech sales? I remember one quarter there was like 2 weeks left in the quarter, and I was at maybe 50% of my quota. And I just remember like we had a conference coming up, and this is a pro tip for SDRs: is when a conference is coming up, that is a great chance to book meetings for your AEs, because that's when leads are open to meeting, right? They go to conferences to meet vendors, all that kind of stuff. And I remember I like went from like, this was a quarterly quota, like over 3 months. And I was only at 50% of it with 2 weeks left in the quarter, right? Like I was supposed to at that point be at like 80 or 90% of my quota. And over those next 2 weeks, like no one on the team thought I was going to hit my quota. I ended up exceeding it. I did end up pissing off a lead because I, pinged him a little too many times. And sometimes that happens in sales when you have to hit your quota. You do things that maybe you wouldn't in your best judgment. But yeah, that was probably the height of my tech experience, when everyone thought I wasn't going to hit my quota, and I made it happen with 2 weeks left in the quarter. Um, so let's see. Okay, is sales engineering a great option to pivot into into after being an SDR in the age of AI that we're approaching, yes, like, yeah, I don't see how AI is going to be really compelling and it's going to disrupt jobs, but also is just going to make jobs more productive. And so the SDR job won't necessarily any like maybe some jobs will be eliminated, but lots of jobs will be transformed to be doing less manual work, less like admin tasks, and more creative, more strategy based work, higher value tasks, right? And so instead of like copying, pasting this thing from this one sheet to this other sheet or whatever, like you'll just be doing things that are require more creativity. What are really remote roles? Do you see an upward trend? Okay, so it's like, okay, I want to work on this question here. What are really good remote roles? Do you see an upward trend in hiring? So, what are really good remote roles? Like, you just want to look for tech companies that are backed by good venture capitalists. And the way to do that is you just Google the company's name and then funding. You see who those venture capitalists are. Go to those venture capitalist websites. You can look at their portfolios, see who they've invested in the past. If you recognize tech companies on that portfolio, that's a good signal. Again, in our program, you don't have to worry about any of that. You outsource all of that to us. Do I see upward trend in hiring? Yeah, like companies are starting to hire more, yeah, you're seeing companies hire recruiters right now. And when companies hire recruiters, who do recruiters do? They hire people, and so it's a good sign. Um, okay, so Anne has this question. She can't get past second rounds of interviews. She has great communication. She has the experience, and she's just not getting feedback. And like you need to be working with a mentor who can do mock interviews with you, someone who's in the industry. So if you know someone in the industry, great. If you don't, like you can maybe reach out to people in the industry, like who you sort of share similarities with, something about your background, maybe same college, same high school, same city, same company you worked at, whatever. Try to befriend them, and then if none of that works, then here at Tech Sales Mentors, we'll give you the advice you need to hear. Okay, so Jeffrey here. Yeah, so basically he's saying like, I did a sales associate role, but it wasn't quota carrying. Yeah, like that's not gonna work. You want a quota carrying role. So yeah. Um, any advice for interview help? So what you should do is you should watch this video. So if you go to our all right, so if you guys want interviewing help, what you should do is click on go to YouTube, type in Tech Sales Mentors, and then you'll see us with our cool looking logo here. Yes, I made this recently. And what you want to do is click this guy right here. How to answer tech sales interview questions. Watch this. Hour and 20 minutes. It's gold. Enjoy that. So that's my advice for interview help. And then, yeah, do that. What else? Yeah, and then the other thing you can do is you can go to our website. Go to our website, and on our website, come on, there we go. On our website, go to our blog, and in our blog, you will see these two things. Your hiring manager looks for 5 traits, right? So these are character traits you want to be communicating through your interview answers. So read that, and then read this other one: how to get a job in tech sales, be a storyteller. It walks you through how you should craft better interview answers. So yeah, so that's what I recommend there. Best of luck there, Ashley. What else? What are some amazing or upcoming industries in tech sales you'd recommend we check out? Um, um, is that the right sort of question to ask? So like, I think the answer here is like, for me at least, um, I found that I perform best when I don't I don't chase a trend. I like chase my curiosity. And having said that though, like you want that curiosity to also like be some sort of growing industry, right? You probably don't want like your curiosity to be in the newspaper industry, right? Because that industry is dying, right? Or you don't want your curiosity to be in the like cable industry. And it's like your curiosity, so you can't change that, but like identify where you what you're curious about, and then like also an industry that's doing well, right? So like I think like the obvious easy answers here are like, oh, like AI is taking off right now. Oh, like crypto is taking off right now. But like if you're not inherently interested in that, then I wouldn't recommend like pursuing those industries. There's lots of industries within software sales that you can perform in without like chasing a trend. Really, you just want to join a good tech company that people are hitting their quota at that company and that company's growing well. Like that's good enough to perform well and make money in tech. You don't have to like chase trends or anything like that. Thoughts on tech sales in Toronto and Canada. In general, you're not going to have the best tech companies recruiting for in-person roles there. So you need to go for more remote roles. So that would be my recommendation there. There's less opportunities available for you because companies may not be able to hire in Canada. They just don't have that set up yet. But yeah, like shoot your shot at companies, and some of them, even though it's listed as United States remote, they still have the ability to hire Canada employees. Another way to do that is just you would look at, I can show you here. You look at the company's LinkedIn page. And so let's say I look at Snowflake's LinkedIn page to get a sense of if they can hire in Canada. I would just click on this people tab, and then I would click on, I would see where they live, and I'd look for the like country I'm looking for. And so I don't see Canada listed here, but it could just be because, is Warsaw? Like, I may be stupid, but is Warsaw in Canada? No, it's in Europe. God, yeah, that's that's embarrassing that I just did that on the live. Okay, maybe you can like type in Canada and like figure it out. Okay, there you go. Cool. So they have hired people in Canada. So that's one way to go about it. Um, cool. So then I'm also based in Manhattan, so I feel more obligated to take advantage of the opportunity. Yeah, Jeffrey, you should definitely. There's some dope companies in New York City that you should check out. So, what are the best tech companies hiring in Los Angeles market right now? Not a lot of tech companies hiring in Los Angeles. That's just what I've noticed when I do like an initial look. I have heard like a few do in Irvine, and so that might be a good one to check. God, I'm gonna get trolled hard for this whole Warsaw thing. Wasn't there's like some like pact or war thing there? Or yeah, and it's funny because I said I'm a student of history. Clearly, I'm not. So I got some work to do here. Um, so it looks like that's all the questions. So thanks so much for joining us, guys. Hey, if you guys want a job in tech sales and you think we can do it for you, check us out, techsalesmentors.com. You can hit us up and hit our free consultation button, and we can see if you're a good fit for our program or not. We'll get you into interviews, 3 to 4 at any given time, so you have a good bucket of them. We will prep you for every single interview. You'll do mock interviews with us. And then we're going to negotiate your offer for you, right? We're going to make sure not only are you getting the best offer you can get, we're going to help you understand which offer is best for you and your long-term career goals. That can be hard to know when you're new to this industry. So yeah, okay. Last question: networking or meetups you'd recommend in Austin for aspiring SDRs? I actually don't know of any, so maybe I'll create one. But maybe Capital Factory has something. But yeah, if not, I might check it out. I might make it happen. So cool. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. And hit us up. Sounds like you're excited to work with us. We're excited to hear from you. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great Thursday night. Have a great weekend. Crush Friday. Don't go easy tomorrow. Crush Friday. Cool. Catch you guys around.